All right, here we go.
New Phineas and Ferb is here.
We're back, baby.
For 104 more days
I know what we're gonna do today.
of summer vacation.
I am ready for summer shenanigans.
Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
We're gonna bust Phineas and Ferb once and for all!
Are we gonna do this again?
New inventions, shenanigans, innators, adventures, and songs.
Brand new summer vacation.
New Phineas and Ferb starts June 5th on Disney Channel and next day on Disney Plus on DisneyPlus.Disney.com.
Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, welcome to 4Kids Flashback. My name is Tara Sands, and I am joined by
Steve Yurko.
Whoop whoop. Hi guys, how are ya? Welcome to the show. If you are tuning in for the very first time, this is a podcast about the company called 4Kids. It was the media company that brought shows like Pokémon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Shaman King and One Piece to English-speaking audiences. And we go deep behind the scenes. Way deep behind the scenes, way behind, I don't know what the proper...
On the other side of the scenes.
We go... we take the scenes, we flip them inside out and upside down. We are in the under... What is it? In a...
Underbelly?
No, in Stranger Things.
Oh,
the upside
like
down. We're in the upside down of the behind the
Yeah.
scenes. Yeah. Yeah. Some might say too far behind the scenes. But here we
have
are.
a lot of man-eating monsters that I like to call execs. No.
And so we have done over 70 interviews. Crazy, right? With people who worked at this company or were tangential to this company. Mm-hmm. So at some point, we are going to end this because we will feel like we have told the story of 4Kids. Mm-hmm. But I want to just to say that we never have to like stop. If somebody worked there and does want to reach out to us, we can always add another interview. So if you are someone that worked there or, again, tangential, please reach out at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com and we'll make it happen. That's how we've gotten some of our favorite interviews, by people reaching out. So
yeah. Like this one today?
No.
Oh.
But I was just thinking about it because sometimes I do reach out and people just don't remember enough. So if you are someone that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they haven't mentioned this. It would be great if you could let us know. We love that. Mm-hmm. Okay, Steve has a graphic tee on today. What does it say?
Oh, it says a bunch of things in Japanese. I should remember. I always forget, but it's basically it's time for the food, or it's time to eat.
Yeah, I see some food items on there.
Yeah.
There's some rice and some
This one I got off a Yeti, but wow, one restaurant in Japan really loved it when I happened to wear it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like,
So
we
it was
say
a hit in
say that
Japan.
here all the time, and then even like the head chef like saw it and like got a kick out of it, and I was like,
bold move
I was
to wear a
somehow
shirt in
embarrassed.
Japan.
I was still kind of like, this is
With
like,
that.
oh, this is great, but I'm like still embarrassed. But
I listen. You made the choice to wear that shirt that day.
yeah,
In
but it seemed like it
Japan,
made their
you-
day. It wasn't kind of just more like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a nice shirt. They like kept everyone like.
Is it fun? Is it something that's funny in Japanese? Like the words that it like? I know you don't know exactly what it
It's
says.
basically
but...
just like, it's like time to eat. I don't know if it says itadakimasu on it. It might. It was a Yeti shirt. It was one I got off a Yeti.
What's
years
Yeti?
back. YETEE.com. They're a great company that does 24-hour like they're like shirts that are available for like a 24-hour period.
Oh,
hire a bunch
Yeti,
of
sponsor us.
artists. Yeah.
Steve's a big fan.
Great shirts.
Okay,
and
cool.
Comfy,
I'll check it out.
And they fit. They fit well.
I wonder too if it was like the idea of like someone who clearly was not Japanese wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
Like who probably
yeah, making fun of
like a very tall white man, American. Yeah.
At least it wasn't a tattoo, but it was so just going to this restaurant and like even like because I think they first saw what I was wearing when I was like going to use the restroom, and then like one of the staff members just like showing me around, like one of their usual patrons was there, and she's like, "Oh, it's like look at this shirt," and he's like,
"Wow, you're big in Japan."
The windows when one of the chefs saw it, and he was just like pointing, and I'm like, "This is so embarrassing."
Oh my goodness!
They got a kick out of it. So
it's funny because you said that you usually wear solid shirts when you go to like doctor's appointments and stuff, but you had a dentist appointment today, and yet you wore a graphic tee.
Because at least
breaking your rule.
It's doesn't really. It's not conveying an emotion or it's got a character on it. Yeah.
All right. I'm learning. By the time I really figure Steve out, this podcast is going to be over. But I'm learning.
Didn't realize I'm that much of a mystery. But then again,
oh yes,
maybe I'm not the biggest open book. So
I don't know. I think everyone has stuff that even if they are an open book, it's stuff they don't like. They're not like readily talking about. So you just sort of are like, if you ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we will ask the right questions today of our guest. I'm not saying her name yet because I want to make sure I pronounce her last name correctly. But her first name is Sabrina. She was the art director at 4Kids. And she went to a different art school in New York than Steve. We've had a couple people who had went to his alma mater. But I'm excited to talk to her. She's not someone I knew back then. So that's always fun. And we will be right back. Our guest today is Sabrina Sevilla. She was the artistic director at 4Kids from 2002 to 2014. She is a self-described archivist of stuff from 4Kids, and I am so excited to talk to her. Thank you so much for being here, Sabrina.
Thank you. This is so nice. I feel that like the art department was a little disconnected from production. And that's one of the things I'm really sorry about, because even looking at all your episodes, I don't know most of those people. Like I know maybe 5 people out of everybody that you've interviewed. And I was there for a long time and worked on every property.
Yeah. So, okay. So I want to ask a little bit about your background, but then I have a lot of questions about that because I feel the same way. Like being an actor there, I didn't know all the stuff that was going on, and we probably could have helped each other.
Totally.
But we'll get thank you for saying that because we'll definitely get into that. I'd love to know a little bit about your art background before and how you got this job.
Okay. Actually, I have a good story. I went to Parsons here in New York, and I had an internship at Leisure Concepts. It wasn't even 4Kids.
Right. Oh, you were there old school.
I was there like names. A summer, I think 2 months, with a friend at it was at the Uptown office, but it was very, very small, like very few people. And I mostly worked on wrestling, like WCW stuff. And it was just funny, all those pictures or whatever. And then one time, Wally, who was, my boss at that time, said, can you help do a poster for this new property, for this thing that we have? And there was no art. There was just these characters and the name. And I'm like, what do I use? It's like, just make anything up. So it was Pokemon. And I did
oh my God,
a poster with just like the first 100 characters and the name. And I had to come up with like a burst and things to put on. And I remember with my friend, we were like, they're kind of cute, but I don't know, like with these weird names, I don't know about this. Whatever.
Oh my gosh.
I went back to school and, I never heard, like I was busy with school or whatever. And then I started to see my poster everywhere. And I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, wait,
that's yours? That iconic poster is your work?
I mean, I don't know I don't know if it's the iconic poster, but it was one that was around at the very beginning, and there were still no Pokemon things, and suddenly everybody wanted Pokemon. So like I'd walk by a toy store and I was like, wait, that's my poster. And then I saw, the people that set up their little table and sell things on the street. They had my poster, and I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
What? There was a boot. Once you have a bootleg, you've made it.
And I was like, "Wait,
that's bonkers."
It went like from the time I went back to school, it just blew up. It was like everywhere, and unfortunately, I wasn't at 4Kids at the time because that's when everybody says that they made the Pokemon money. Like they all like
yeah.
But what happened was
not us, but yeah.
Not me either. So then
so can you describe what it looks like just in case, because I'm sure it's probably the classic 150 poster that we all see, I'm guessing.
It just had all the characters and a burst in the background.
So the logo and all that was done.
The logo was done.
Okay.
But there wasn't really a style guide. There was no art whatsoever. Like they had just gotten it. And then I went back to school and, finished school, and I was working at a fashion advertising agency, like completely different stuff, like more like luxury fashion. And Wally called and was like, come work with us. Like, we're overwhelmed. Just come. And I was like, okay. And that's how I got there.
He's the best.
Yeah. And when I went back, suddenly it was so much bigger. Like from when I did the internship, that there was like a table, to when I went back, there was like there were so many people. They were so busy. It was like, I think the biggest rush had already passed, but they were still like all these people, all these like licensing forms and all these samples. And
yeah, well, they were playing catch up because the toys kind of didn't come out in time for the boom. So like, I think you probably got there once they kind of caught up and things were in motion.
Yeah. And there was just like tons of stuff coming in. We had the licensing forms where people would submit things. So you had to check that everything followed the rules. Like you couldn't flip characters. There were some, like you had to have some characters together. So, and there was all these other people that took care of all that. But then we were like, the art department had to redesign them and just help them out and do all the stuff. So, then I started working there, and it was so fun. Like we worked really, really hard, but it was such a fun place to work. Like we all got along. Like still till now, a lot of the people from 4Kids are my good friends. Like we're in touch.
Oh, me too. I love that. We keep hearing that.
Yeah.
And it's so nice. I think it's because we were, you guys especially were working crazy hours. You were young. It was your second job, but it was a lot of people's very first job.
Yeah.
It was such a young spirited office.
We like the things that we did were so inappropriate. Like we could never do those again. Like all these crazy pranks and no, it was a fun office, but we also worked really, really hard. Like the amount of stuff that we would just get done is incredible.
Yeah. Okay. So when you go back, there's a style guide by this point. Can you tell people what a style guide is, just so they understand because we're going to talk about that a lot probably.
Okay. So every property, you have to have like a book pretty much that you have to give to all these licensees, because you want everything to kind of look like it's from the same family. So at first, the style guides were these like crazy creative books. Like it was actually a book, and you'd have all the art inside, and then you'd include, a DVD with all the art. So we tried to make them as creative as possible. Like the Turtles one was like a pizza box. The Yu-Gi-Oh one had all these hieroglyphics.
Oh, cool.
The Pokemon one was never great because it was so disorganized, because I guess like they had to rush so fast to just give things out that it was just all over the place. There was never like an organized book, because again, I think it just happened like this. So the style guide, first, it had like an introduction where you tell the story, pretty much what it's about and all that. And then you select the colors, the color palette, the typefaces, pretty much the personality of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, have all the characters and the name and like the information, pretty much like just to make people familiar with everything. Then we create the art that the licensees, usually a lot of them were really bad at design. So you wanted to give them something that they could just use straight from us. So we did all these group shots and composites and, you know, we do backgrounds and borders, pretty much everything. Like it was so much art. And then we also did packaging because like some of the big toy lines, like the big toy companies would make their own packaging. Like, you know, like Mattel would do something special or whatever. But we kind of, based on that or working together, we'd make a packaging that we need to send to everybody so that everything looks alike. Like the idea is to make it seem like it's all coming from the same place.
Yeah.
So
how much was coming from Japan and how much were you actually making? Like did you get assets from Japan at all or not really?
We got, later on, we would start getting assets from Japan, but a lot of the art, the group shots and things like that, we created.
Okay. So you would, and this is, Steve is an artist as well. So I'm going to ask it's going to sound like a dumb question, but let's say you're doing a artwork with, you need Ash and Pikachu for like for a standard thing that can go on a t-shirt, a lunchbox. Are you pulling that artwork from somewhere or are you redrawing some of this artwork?
Well, when it was provided, like you need it to be vector because if it's a flat like Photoshop file.
I don't know what that means.
Okay. Photoshop is like a picture. Photoshop is like a picture.
Vector. Okay.
Vector is like something that you can blow up that's actually an Illustrator file. So
it's much more high quality.
Exactly. If you want to make a banner or something big, or if you want to, for the printing process, you want to separate the colors and stuff. So for example, when Yu-Gi-Oh came around, I remember that we had a lot of art, but it wasn't vector. It was things that we were pulling from the show so we had to retrace them. We had to redraw them because eventually they would provide it to us. Like we would say, we need this and we need this. Mm-hmm. But we had a whole team of people just tracing the characters, trying to make it as detailed as possible. Yeah. And
that's a lot of work. Okay. See,
that's a lot of work. And they were very particular about every little detail being perfect. So with the art that we had, we couldn't do posters or anything big, because it was like little things from the show. So we had to redraw it all.
Wow.
Pokemon, the characters were a lot easier. They were more simple. And I think we did get vector art at some point, but there was a lot of things that like you need, like emblems and icons and things and that it's always like what we usually do is like we see the show, we see what we have, and we're like, wait, pause that. That looks good. So like we'll take that and use it and redraw it, and that looks cool. But we had to have like all the backgrounds without characters, so like people could make their own thing. So we had backgrounds, we had borders, we had little frames, all sorts of stuff. Oh, we would do like the hang tag and the J card, everything.
Everything. And how much of that had to get approved by Japan? Like
everything.
So this must have been a crazy slow process then. Or no, I mean,
that's why I think that like with Pokemon, it was very difficult because there was no system yet.
Yeah.
But later on, we had a good system. Like we would end with one category, send it for approval, make the changes. Like there's always changes. And we had another important thing that we had to do is a licensing seal, so that every single product had a seal on it. And honestly, now like you can make like holograms or something like really complicated that nobody's going to copy. But, we just did a seal that had a little bit of a design or whatever, but you knew that every single product that was a true licensed product had to have that seal.
Did people knock off the seal though? Like did that? I'm sure that must have happened, right?
Sure. I'm sure. And for Pokemon, there were so many knockoffs.
Yeah.
So actually, Actually, that was part of the thing. Some people would like check for knockoffs and things.
That was like someone's job. Yeah.
That was someone's job.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Chevy Silverado. When it's time for you to ditch the blacktop and head off-road, do it in a truck that says no to nothing. The Chevy Silverado Trail Boss. Get the rugged capability of its Z71 suspension and 2-inch factory lift. Plus, impressive torque and towing capacity thanks to an available Duramax 3-liter turbo diesel engine. Where other trucks call it quits, you'll just be getting started. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/Spotify.
The samples, like, so we did worldwide, all the properties worldwide. So you can just imagine they had to send, I forget how many, but they had to send a number of samples because one we had to keep, one went to the licensor. As you know, we had the 17th floor full of samples. It was crazy. Like,
see, we
had
never
so much
went
stuff.
there. Like, we never got swag. Like, so it's so crazy to me that there was this closet because we would have died for this stuff.
There was so much stuff.
I was buying so much stuff for myself.
And honestly, at that time, I didn't have nieces or nephews or kids or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, it was so much that you got tired of it. Like, we wouldn't take all the stuff. But when I did, and I remember like giving people the giant Gravedigger Monster Jam truck. They were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And the funny thing is that now my nephew like loves Pokemon and is always asking for Pokemon, and I buy him things. And,
I know. If only we had known that we'd be talking about this 25 years later. But who could have predicted that?
Oh, and listen to this. We had, apart from the licensing, the 17th floor, which was storage of the things that we were working on now, 4Kids had a big storage unit upstate in one of those like giant places.
Iron Mountain, we think.
Iron Mountain, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they had, things from way, way back, things that I didn't even know 4Kids had.
Oh.
And at some point, when things kind of started to die, that like there was no longer budgets for a lot of things, one of the first things to go was this Iron Mountain, like the storage unit.
Wow.
So we went there and like we tried, like we grabbed what we could, but it was all like, we didn't have cars or trucks or whatever.
You're coming from the city. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I found all these Thundercat things. They had Thundercats, they had Silverhawks. It was just like stuff that was there.
I wonder if that's stuff that that like they like outside licensing things, like maybe that their subsidiaries worked on, because I don't know if maybe they tried to get those. That's so interesting.
I don't know, but like, before when it was Leisure Concepts, they had James Bond and they had all these things. But the crazy thing is that they were getting rid of the storage unit. So all that stuff that we didn't take, like it was so much stuff, it needed to be destroyed. Like I was like, can't we donate this? And at this point, 4Kids had been sued so many times, like there were so many lawsuits that they couldn't give anything away because they were samples. So they couldn't say like there was a liability thing.
Wow.
And there were school supplies, shoes, like so many things. And it was just like, it would just hurt me. I would like, can't we give this away?
Yeah, that could
And
have gone to a good...
no, they couldn't take the risk.
We've been trying to figure out, because there's a lot of shows that are lost media, and we keep hearing, oh, they must be at Iron Mountain. But now you've answered this question that this was all destroyed or taken. Do you know if there were like copies of the shows there? Or like media?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Actual media? I don't know.
Yeah, we can't figure out where this stuff is.
I don't know. I have all the style guides. Like on my end, it would like I have.
You kept your stuff.
Guides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, because the end was so chaotic. Like we were just like, what's happening? People were like, getting let go or whatever. So
yeah.
But all that stuff, I remember I'm from Ecuador. So I was like, can't I take this stuff and give it away to like poor kids in Ecuador?
Yeah.
And they were like, if you want it, take it. But you have to arrange picking it up, sending it, all the whatever. And I was like, I can't. Like, this is overwhelming. So
yeah.
It was like,
that's such a shame.
Grab the few things that you can, and everything else was going to get burnt. Like, they would like, it actually got burnt.
Oh my God, this is heartbreaking.
I mean, it answers a long running myth with our show, but it's a sad ending, but it sounds rough.
Yeah, it was bad. Now, now thinking back, I'm like, just rent a car or something and take as much as you can. But
we didn't think like that.
We weren't.
Yeah.
No, we didn't think like that, and we were overwhelmed with stuff. Oh, and the 17th, the storage closet at 4Kids also was one of the first things that was like, we have to give that up, get rid of everything. And I remember like there was so much stuff left over. And one day I told a friend, like, come get whatever you want. And she had kids, and it was just like a shopping show, like grab what you can or whatever. A lot of it was, just junk.
Yeah, like
a lot
pencils
of it was junk.
And stuff that the adults didn't necessarily want, but that some kid would be happy with, probably.
Takes care of Christmas or the other holidays.
Yeah.
No, and like the kids would go crazy. Like I remember Cabbage Patch dolls. Like I would have kids. I'm sorry, you can't say dolls. That was a whole thing.
Oh,
Really?
Right. They're because they're kids. They're not dolls. They're real kids. Yes.
They're real kids.
There's
and
a documentary about it.
I went to Atlanta to the actual place, and it was like, the kids are waking up. They took it really far.
They do. There's a great, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but Al Khan is in it. That's on now. Maybe it's on Prime. If people at home, it's a really interesting insight into the toy world and Cabbage Patch kids specifically.
So anyways, I had a lot of the kids, and I would just like give them away. Like, here, have this. And it's like,
Wow. So you were in the Uptown office. I want to talk about the office dynamics a little bit, because you said you didn't really interact with the people in the other office. So you were working with the art department up there. Did you know the show's producers? Did you ever talk about things what was the interaction like?
We do Norman, because Norman would come to the Uptown office. But we really had no contact. Like it was really a separate little world. Wally went to the downtown office to work on home video, and Susan Simpson was the creative director. And we had a really good team. We had a lot of fun. We worked really hard. But for us, and you're not going to like to hear this, but for us, we would think of like the TV shows and everything almost like advertising for all of the product. So we were like, if the TV show shows something and does well, like the product is where, the money was made, and, it was all about the product and selling. It was like kind of like the heart of the thing.
Yeah. I mean, they were a licensing company at heart. So, I mean, that's absolutely makes sense. And we talked to Mike Pecorello, who was one of the producers. And I mean, there's this term toyetic, and it's like, we wonder why certain shows got canceled, and it could be as simple as the fact that they didn't sell toys, and like it could have been their best show, but if the toy line wasn't ready or the toys just didn't appeal, it was done.
I know, but sometimes there were things that like we really liked and we would have wanted to give it more of a chance. But it wasn't, I mean, we weren't really part of that, like from the very beginning. And some things that are a little bit more, I guess, educational or whatever, didn't ever do as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like they gave some properties like so much chance. Like they tried and went for it and tried and tried. And then other things like Doremi or Mew Mew or Tama that we really liked. Like all the designers really liked that stuff. And they were gone in a second. Like we didn't really.
So did that mean that you didn't have time necessarily to get the licensing done for those shows? Like what was the pipeline or the timeline for like, okay, we're going to do this show called Tama and Friends. And we've been asked actually about merch for those shows or Fighting Foodons. What would happen with merch? Did you have to wait for ratings or did you have to get ahead of the ratings?
I think they were doing it at the same time, but that was, the licensing people. And when they couldn't get deals, they were like, this isn't going anywhere. We can't get deals. But some things just took a little longer. I don't know. There were some things like Word World. Remember Word World?
Vaguely.
This one.
I didn't know that was one of their things. Okay. She's holding up a book. I'll take a picture for you guys. Okay.
I'll send it. We tried that one. I mean, it was almost like an ongoing joke. Like every time it was back to World, and it never really happened.
So what was like the gold standard? Like, is a Happy Meal toy like what the goal is? Like what do you guys hope for?
So there was a promotions team, actually a promotions person, Susan Tran, who was amazing. She's really, really good. And honestly, working on those promotions was one of the coolest things because to see, like we did a Yu-Gi-Oh one, a McDonald's Yu-Gi-Oh one.
Mm-hmm.
What year was that? I don't know if I have it written down. Maybe like 2005.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it was like, you have to work on everything, the boxes, the giveaways, all that. It was really, really cool.
Do they also, do they also have a department working on that you're working in conjunction with? Like, does McDonald's have a department? Like when you're saying the box and all this stuff. So you're interacting with the McDonald's art department? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was like that you have to work on together. Mm-hmm. Also with the licensor, because they're like, it had to go through so many steps, especially those big promotions. It's like, change this, no, change that, come back to this, do that. But everything has to be perfect. So to get it all rolling was, really hard. But then you'd see it everywhere. And apart from like the actual thing at McDonald's, it was all the signage and everything, to advertise it. So that was cool. I remember we had a property called The Dog that wasn't a TV show. So I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Mm-mm.
It was one of my favorite things. It was these like fisheye pictures of dogs.
Oh.
A Japanese property. You see, we had a lot of properties that weren't TV shows that you probably don't even, like, you never dealt with.
Right. So were these licensing discussions more difficult when it was an anime project because you were dealing with like language barriers and overseas companies as opposed to like Ninja Turtles where you could call up, locally?
Yeah, definitely. There were extra steps, but we had properties not only from Japan, like we had Winx from Italy. Mm-hmm. We had, so all of them had their special little things that we had to, go around. For example, Winx showed a lot of cleavage and had very, very short skirts. And they didn't want that. They were like, can you make the skirts a little longer? Can you cover a little more? Mm-hmm. So that's, we had to do a lot of that, just cover them up a little bit. I loved Winx. I really loved Winx.
Were you involved with the dolls for Winx?
Kind of. Like we would have to approve them and everything, but I was involved with a lot of the style guide, and we did books. We did like that one. I feel like was everywhere. Like that was But again, then it became even bigger. The same, I feel like we gave up on things. For example, like I never understood at some point we left Nintendo for Xbox, and Nintendo, like we had, just with the properties that we had, we should have been so successful forever. Like we had amazing properties, like Pokemon, like all these things. It wasn't that they were going up and down. Like they went up and down, but then they went back up.
Yeah.
Like we had amazing properties. We had just with Nintendo and Monster Jam and Winx and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And those are the ones with TV shows. We had, the dog was huge. The dog was everywhere.
And that wasn't even a show, yeah.
It wasn't even a show, but it was very like nice design, like white backgrounds. It was very cool. And I remember once I was in a family trip in Germany with my parents, and we were driving somewhere, and we stopped to put gas, and we went to the little store, and I'm like, oh my God, I did this. Because they had all the dog things that was some promotion that they were selling. And I was like, oh my God, look, this tagline, I came up with it and I designed it, and there it is.
Oh, that's
it was
cool
like
that
live, laugh. Yeah.
You were able to do the taglines and stuff too. That's awesome. Like I didn't know that the art department got to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sometimes we were given, and sometimes you just have to do extra things because you want to, also you want, like you come up with the first style guide, but then you don't want things to get stale. So you have to constantly be doing a seasonal one, an addendum, or this or that. So for example, we would do, like Valentine's Day, Christmas, let's do this other thing. So then you'd like, that was the whole thing. Like some licensees didn't want to have everything that everybody else had. They wanted like an exclusive design. So you'd have to come up with an exclusive design for them. The dog was also a McDonald's promotion that was huge. Like it was everywhere because in Ecuador, it was in Ecuador as well.
Wow.
So I remember like I'd go home and I'd have all the dog things, and everybody was like, I want that, I want that.
Yeah, see, we had no idea all this was going on. That's so cool that there's... So you mentioned before there were some rules, like with Pokemon, like these characters had to be together or this. Do you remember any specifics of like crazy rules or any crazy products that came out that you were like, I can't believe this toaster or things like that?
I mean, there was every single product that you could imagine, but a lot of the cool ones were when it was a lot of like food things. And I know now there's a lot of licensing and food together. Like it became a really big trend, like hot sauce and, all that. But I remember working on Winx, like General Mills gummies or something like that, like all these like food products. And that was really cool.
Yeah.
Because you have to, like, we would design the boxes and would also send samples. And a lot of time it's difficult to get it to look right. So we're like, nah, that doesn't really look like the character at all. It's like a back and forth to get it as close as possible.
Oh, like the shape of the noodle or whatever it is to look.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's like the Pokemon pasta and the cereal. Yeah. Well, and we were talking about this before. Like, I was excited because Oddish was a marshmallow shape in the cereal, but Bulbasaur wasn't. And I'm sure it's because Bulbasaur, you couldn't articulate the shape of it as a marshmallow, probably. Like something, I mean.
Yeah, it was difficult. Like things would change shapes. And also there was a thing where, anybody doing anything, they wanted to use the same characters. Like obviously the same like top characters that they love. But the licensor wanted to like do different things and use different characters and not always do the same. So we had to be like, no, use these characters. And they wanted to like the best selling characters already. So,
but sometimes you wanted to branch out and have other things.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So we'd have to tell them. I remember with also with like the humans, it was a thing like. You couldn't have the humans by themselves, I think.
Right, we've heard this before. Yeah. Well, what we heard was that they didn't sell as well if they weren't with a Pokemon. Do you remember that being the reason?
I I don't remember the reason. I just remember that we had to, like when we did the group shots and everything, and size was very important because, like you grab all the characters and you put them in and, you're like arranging them and like moving things around and you like enlarge something and you're like, that's not to scale. So in the style guide, we include a height comparison chart that shows you, how each character should be. So in some, it's not that difficult. Like Winx, it's like the girls, but in Pokemon, you can imagine like all these characters at different sizes.
Yeah, you're like, I need a Snorlax, but I also need this bug type thing. And you're like, how are we going to be able to see any detail if they're both in the group shot, I guess?
Yeah.
Summer's here, and Nordstrom has everything you need for your best dress season ever. From beach days and weddings to weekend getaways and your everyday wardrobe. Discover stylish options under $100 from tons of your favorite brands like Mango, Skims, Princess Polly, and Madewell. It's easy too with free shipping and free returns, in-store order pickup, and more. Shop today in stores, online at Nordstrom.com, or download the Nordstrom app.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase of 16 weeks, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Get into your body's vitals with the Vitals app on Apple Watch. The Vitals app tracks key overnight metrics so you can spot changes in your health before you feel them. The Vitals app on Apple Watch. iPhone XS or later required. The Vitals app is for wellness purposes only and not for medical use.
And the crazy thing is that I think for some of the anime properties, it was worldwide except Japan. And for other things, it was worldwide. So can you imagine, like, we would get samples from Romania, from like pretty much anywhere. And, things were kind of different in different places. Sometimes I remember Susan Simpson, our boss, would be like, can you make this tagline in Russian? Or can you we're like, okay, let's try.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a different era where, Google Translate isn't really a thing, nor is that ever really reliable, but geez.
And they would do things in English that didn't make sense. Yeah, there was a lot of, I remember doing things in Portuguese and I'm like, I don't speak Portuguese, but I hope it's okay.
Well, yeah, Wally told us the whole thing about making the Yu-Gi-Oh logo and he ended up getting help at a Japanese restaurant for it.
Yeah.
Did you guys get to work on the logos at all?
Most of the logos were already there with the property, but we would make different versions of them because you have to have a horizontal one, a vertical one, black and white one. But let me think of our properties. We did for example, Cabbage Patch Kids. They already had their logo, but we would do a whole retro line. So we would change the logo. We did a lot of those retro vintage lines that actually did really well.
Oh, cool.
So change the logo a little bit. Yeah, that was great. I liked all the vintage things. Same thing with Turtles. We would do the little retro line.
Oh, that's fun. Would you get the shows in advance so that you could come up with ideas, or how far in advance were you able to see this stuff?
We usually got art. We usually got pieces of art that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm saying there was a really big disconnect.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those properties that we worked on, we didn't, like, we should have been watching the show. We should have been, like, involved, you guys and us in a lot of things. But we, like, yeah, I think a lot of things we did. For example, I don't remember ever seeing, like, a Doremi or the actual show or Tama. Like, I love Tama, but yeah, we didn't really.
You like the artwork. You didn't necessarily get to see the show. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we wonder too, like with that show, because it was a younger demographic than what they ended up targeting. So I wonder if that was the reason. And I don't think it had a great time slot. But again, it's like these things didn't get a chance, maybe. And that's such a bummer.
Yeah, they didn't get a chance. And at the end, it was, I guess, Al's decision. So
yeah,
sometimes
or ratings. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, so sometimes with some products, I was like, it's amazing. It's really cool. It looks great.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what we also had? We had the AKC.
What's that?
The American Kennel Club. That
yes.
So that one, like, there was no TV to it, but it was like just tons. Like, that one did well. Like, there was so much product. Everybody wants their breed of dog and their product.
Right. So every single breed had a thing. Yeah.
And actually their pictures, what they provided to us, were all these show pictures, like very staged and very rigid. And we were like, we can't do anything with that. So we had to have photo shoots and take our own pictures. So we would, we would art direct, like go to the breeders, or sometimes they would come to us, and all these props and baskets and things, like, I love that. We had so much fun, and it was pretty much us with all these puppies and dogs. And like,
how fun. You also got to do the licensing shows, like the booths at the licensing shows.
Oh, that's another big thing. We were like, especially when we had a lot of money, like preparing for the licensing show was huge, because it's not only the booth, it's like designing the booth and all that. And it's all the artwork that goes on the booth, those posters and banners and all that. But then all the promotional stuff, like we did sell sheets, we did these property guides, like tons of stuff. When it used to be at the Javits Center. Mm-hmm. And one year we did all the stairs. That was
you like covered in like in artwork.
I think
cool.
that was Pokemon. That was Pokemon. So you had to like figure out something that looks good from far away, but also like each separate piece would kind of like look like something.
Oh, that's
so that was really cool. That was really cool to see like that there.
Yeah. Do you remember any, like, we've heard about different kinds of like corporate events and stuff. Did you design stuff for those did you go to those things? We've been asked about like more internal corporate-y promotional stuff. I don't know if that was something you got to go to or design for.
I don't remember any corporate events. Like I remember like there was Toy Fair and those actual shows. And then there was a lot of going to the headquarters, like, for example, going to Target headquarters.
Oh, cool.
And that was actually a whole thing, because like everything is about getting picked up at Walmart or Target. So those buyers had such power, because they were like, yes, we'll do this. We like this, but can you make us a girl line too? And I'm like, you don't need a girl line. It's like, it's for everybody. Like, you don't need a gender specific. And they were like, no, we want a Princess the dog line. So it was kind of a cycle, they say that their customers want it, so do it. And we have to do it because we want to sell the other stuff. Right. So yeah, there was a lot of like, they had a lot of power. Like they could decide, the big guys could decide a lot of stuff.
So what would happen? I don't know if you were privy to this, but like if a certain thing just really couldn't sell at it, would you get that kind of feedback to go forward with your designs, or would Al be mad? What would happen if something just didn't do well at like a Target?
A lot of things didn't do well, and like if you were in Target and didn't do well, like that was really bad. And I think that what they did is a lot of the licensing people, they sold one thing together with another thing. They were like, oh, this isn't doing well. Well, here, let's do the dog. Or, they give them something that does well and say, also try this. But again, I think that a lot of the things that, I wish we would have had the chance. Oh, this isn't doing well. Let's try something else.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a different design. Let's do it for a different age group. But no, usually you don't have that chance. It's out.
Okay. And I know Steve's going to want to ask about One Piece, right, Steve?
Was
there merch from One Piece that you wanted to ask anything?
Well, because I'm... well, that does apply because I think One Piece was the same, it went through the same thing where it's okay, we have a Mattel toy line, we got a card game, some video games. I think I'm just curious about I'm curious what wasn't working. Is it just was it just applying the same template to other properties, or was it you mentioned Doremi and Mew Mew earlier? I'm wondering was girl stuff just not really a hit besides Winx? I'm just curious what was not sticking with some of these licenses.
I don't know. I think that people needed more time to get into it because One Piece is huge. But I think that also, I think One Piece actually was older than what we were trying to do. A lot of older kids liked it. So we would try to simplify things for it to be for little kids. And what would happen is if a little kid is wearing something, that's it. The bigger kids aren't going to, use what the little kids are. So if you started at a higher age group, then you could go lower and it would work. But if you started low enough, the older kids are not going to, unless you did something. Oh, you know what also happened? I now see a lot of times in H&M or in Uniqlo that they'll have a license that we had and they do really cool, one color things and that we would have loved to do, but we weren't allowed. It was rejected. I think that with time and also with the big name of a H&M, they're no, let's just have one big character in one color. And I think that we weren't allowed to a lot of those things that these big places do now. We would just use the character as is, don't make it very modern or very.
Yeah, that's an interesting trend. I think that just wasn't the trend back then. And now it's to be unique and different is a trend, whereas before I think it was conformity almost for that. A little kid would see that and be like, it doesn't look like Ash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm just curious, you also think with some of these properties it was, you said it needed more time to find an audience. Do you think the problem was, say a show would come out and they're all right, well, we got to get the toy line out at the same time, or games and all that, where it's well, it needs to build an audience first. So maybe they're oh, these toys aren't these toys or games aren't selling. I'm well, maybe there's not enough episodes on TV. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Again, I think that there was such a big disconnect. We didn't know what was happening at production that much. We didn't know the ratings, at least the art department. We weren't privy of the ratings or this or that or the time slots. So sometimes we really liked something and we were really hoping to do something. And, on the other side, the show wasn't doing well or something happened. So again, if everything worked together, also some things take longer. So the toy line would take, too much time. I don't know.
We interviewed an author who did a lot of the Pokémon books. Did you get to work on the covers for those?
Oh, look, I actually, one of my...
I had a feeling.
I did. Actually, this book that was a very first... Also,
okay,
when I just started...
we post a picture from this, yeah.
I'll send it because actually this book, it's really cool because it says designed by Sabrina Sevilla. I designed the book.
Oh.
And when when Pokemon was huge, well, the first time it was huge, I remember we did go to some like schools and promotional things, and the kids would be like, "Can you sign my book? Can I have your autograph?" And I'm like, "Oh,
that's so cute.
We're stars. We're stars."
Well, I bought one of the books that is like how to draw Pokemon, and I was like, I'll be able to do this. Like recently when we were interviewing the author, and it was really difficult. So did you guys have input into like those kind of books from an artistic standpoint?
Yeah. We always had final approval on everything.
Okay.
So some things were, fine as they did it, and some things we had to make changes and work on.
Because I want to meet the person who actually made the step-by-step of how to draw each Pokemon, because I was terrible at it, and I would like to talk to them about how they thought this was going to be easy for me to do.
Yeah, I don't think that was our art department. I think that was
fine.
The licensee that made the book.
All right. I won't yell at you for that.
But I'm sure we had so many in our supply closet. In our little...
you probably did. That we couldn't get our hands on.
Oh, too bad.
Oh, man.
When we finally moved downtown, everybody went to the downtown office, and then I met some people from production that worked there, and they're like really cool, and like we became friends. But that was kind of, on the other hand, that was kind of like when people were getting laid off, and we didn't have budgets for everything. Like, it was kind of a bad time.
Yeah, you stayed until, you were there until the very final days, right?
I was there until the very final days. One of the reasons was because I brought in a property. I brought in this property called Pachanga, this really cool property that was like illustrations, like really modern illustrations of moths. It was all about moths. So I kind of felt like a responsibility, like I can't take off when I brought this in.
Yeah.
And like there was still a lot of work to do because, again, since it was worldwide, like I remember till my very last days, we were working on another thing for the dog. Like we did illustrations, like a 2D style guide for the dog. And that was like the very last days.
Wow.
So things were still happening.
Yeah. I mean, so did you in the last year or so, I guess you could sense the end was near. I mean, there's a lot of theories about what happened. There's the Lehman Brothers stuff. There's the lawsuits. Like, what do you think really spelled the end? And some people blame Chaotic, the show Chaotic, costing a lot of money. And do you have a theory about what happened?
You see, Chaotic is one, for example, that they never gave up on. Like, it was like, they just like kept throwing and throwing and throwing money on it. Like nobody liked it. It was just so much money. Like if they would have done that with a lot of the other ones, maybe they would have done well.
Interesting. But they owned everything for Chaotic.
Yeah, they owned everything. So if we could get this card game, if we get it popular, then we'll rake in all that money. But that makes sense.
Yeah, and they were like, I know, totally. But they were like very particular as, we need to hire this illustrator and like this very particular thing. So that was just like they tried really hard and it was just like throwing so much money away. But I think it was a combination of things. Like I think that also, I guess like the bad investments, the bad management, and also, again, we weren't a unified thing. Like, Al was very much at the top and made like final decisions on everything. And the way it started to go down was kind of bad because, we'd lose a really important person. And then like, you just, you knew that more layoffs were coming, but you still had a lot of work to do. And then like all our projects, for example, a licensing show or, it's different if you have like a big budget to do whatever you want. If suddenly we're like, we have to do the same thing, but like we can't spend money. So, it's not as fun.
Yeah.
Definitely not as fun.
Well, and it's also then the perception of the company changes. The outside perception of it changes, and people aren't as excited when they knew that you had this crazy booth last year, and they're like, oh, something's going on over there. So it's the optics are so important. Even if you don't have the money to spend, you kind of almost have to keep up appearances
Totally.
or something. Yeah, that's...
And you know, another thing I think that like they wanted everything to be huge. And the moment it stopped being huge, they stopped paying attention to it. And like, for example, Pokemon went up, went down, and then went really back up. And some other things, maybe they weren't huge, but they were okay. Just with the properties that we had amazing properties. Like if we would have just stuck by Nintendo and, you know.
Right. It's interesting you say that, too, because I forgot who it was. One of the people we interviewed was like, you can't hit a home run every time. Doubles and triples are great. And maybe if they had just doubled down on those doubles and triples instead of, you know, I think it's hard when Pokemon was such an early success for them.
Yeah.
And then the marker is set so high. And then Yu-Gi-Oh! Is right up there. And so anything in between or below those things is just...
That kind of set the standard that everything had to be huge. So, and I think some things like just take longer to become popular, to like, I don't know.
So do you ever, one of the questions I always ask is, do you ever blow kids' minds by telling them you worked on this stuff?
Oh my God, yes, all the time. That's the one thing that's really cool. Oh, you know, one really cool Pokemon thing that I remember working on that I was like, oh my God, they did an airplane. So we had to, they did a whole airplane. So we kind of, we would get the pictures and like, you know, no, let's do something more like this. Let's move this character. And like, you're seeing a little picture and trying to imagine this, like an actual airplane.
Oh my gosh. And you showed me the TV guide covers earlier.
TV guide covers. We also have Yu-Gi-Oh! TV guide covers that were metallic, and that was such a cool big deal for us. Like it was like, whoa, how do we like what changes do we have to do so that it looks cool in the metallic ink?
Yeah, and one of the actors we interviewed said his mom bought literally every copy from like every supermarket in his area when his character was on the cover of the Yu-Gi-Oh! One. Like I remember we were so excited. Oh, you saved everything. I love it. So, yeah, we will definitely post pictures of this stuff.
Oh, you know what other one? This one was so exciting for me. We did the dog, this property that you guys, I have to show you.
Yeah.
You know, because you've seen it. It was everywhere. You've seen it. But we did billboards in Times Square.
Oh, that's
cool. And like to see your stuff, like to see stuff that I worked on, like that's there were like 4 or something billboards in Times Square. That was very cool.
Hey there, travelers. Kaylee Cuoco here. Sorry to interrupt your music, great artist BT Dubs, but wouldn't you rather be there to hear it live? With Priceline, you can get out of your dreams and into your dream concert. They've got millions of travel deals to get you to that festival, gig, rave, sound bath, or sonic experience you've been dreaming of. Download the Priceline app today, and you can save up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights. So don't just dream about that trip. Book it with Priceline.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you've done after with all this art skill that you had and all these things that you learned at 4Kids?
So when 4Kids closed, or when like it dissolved, whatever the way to say it is, a lot of those clients that we had or whatever still needed a lot of work done. So I actually kept working as a freelancer on some things. I even Al hired me to do a logo for the Kung Fu Pork Choppers.
Okay.
some other show. And then I worked with a lot of the people that worked at 4Kids that had like their own thing going. I've worked with them. Mm-hmm. And I've just been freelancing all this time.
That's great.
A lot of it in children's entertainment, but also other stuff.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, we talked again. two things that I say a lot, but I need to say here is that I just, the actors go to these conventions and all this stuff and we get thanked. But I always tell them that it's like people like you that they should be thanking who did all that work, like that made those magazine covers and fun and those T-shirts adorable. So thank you on their behalf for all the work you put in.
But really it's all of us, because that's the thing that like very few companies did everything together. That's why 4Kids was amazing, because there was no other company.
Yeah.
I mean, you had like Disney or Nickelodeon, but we had everything. Like we were in charge of everything, the show, the art, it was
It
an
was, I think,
amazing
in
place.
some ways maybe ahead of its time. I don't know if ahead of its time is the right word to use, but like because it started as a licensing company, its focus was different. And it is shocking to me still that it didn't survive some of those catastrophes that, again, were not all their faults, and the Lehman Brothers thing and all that. But
the Lehman Brothers things was also like people were let go that were crucial to 4Kids. For example, when Joe Garrity left, it was like a blow for everybody because everybody loved him so much.
What department was Joe in? He was not someone I knew.
Joe was like financial, like CFO.
Oh, okay.
And he was very calm and like a really nice guy. But then my boss, Susan Simpson, was let go.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to be like part of the marketing team. But the marketing team did not know what was going on with us. Like we were kind of left on our own. Like
okay.
It was really bad, because before, like, Susan would be the person, our link with everybody and like in charge of everything. And she's amazing and she's like on it. And then without her, we were kind of lost. Like we didn't, it was, I just think that we needed more, we needed to be more unified with all the different departments.
Yeah.
That would have been like a positive thing.
Yeah. You wonder how different it would have been if everyone had been in the same office to start with. Because again, like we always thought like, oh, that's the suits uptown, but it wasn't just the suits. It was it was the artists. I mean, and how cool would it have been to been able to interact with you guys? So for everybody,
totally.
Yeah, or like for you guys, the music department and all that kind of stuff.
And I would have loved to just, see how the voices are done and like try it and like, that would have been like such an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of things that 4Kids had that now I'm like, I wish I would have taken advantage of. For example, we had a London office.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did a lot of things, like we worked with the London office. And I'm like, why didn't I go to work from London like for 6 months or something?
Right. I know. And I've tried to interview someone from the London office. I haven't had any luck yet, but like I didn't realize that until recently that there was a London office.
There was a London office and they were super cool. And we would see them like licensing shows and toy fairs. But I totally easily could have gone and worked there.
Yeah. Well, when you're young, you just don't necessarily think about that, unfortunately. But also,
what other?
Oh, what?
I have another really cool property that we haven't mentioned.
What?
That again is not a TV show, so you probably didn't deal with it at all. Henson.
Really?
Oh, the Jim Henson Studios.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We had a lot of Jim Henson things. Pajanimals was a show,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, you guys had great licenses that we just never heard about.
Jim Henson, I had to go to the Jim Henson headquarters or whatever, and I had his actual sketchbooks, all these sketchbooks to look through and grab things that I liked and grab things that I wanted to use. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
That's so cool.
And that property, for example, was amazing. So creative, so many cool things. And the product from Japan was amazing. It was really cool. It did well, but it didn't really do that well in the rest of the places. And I really think that is something that we should have stuck by because, again, Jim Henson, every little doodle in that sketchbook was amazing. It was so cool.
God. That's so neat. I mean, and then you think about there was a G.I. Joe show. How did that not work? You know what I mean? Or how did that at least not sell enough toys to keep it on? So it's just a shame.
Yeah.
Do you think a part of it is like, because having stuff like Nintendo and Henson, do you think it's just like 4Kids, all the money went into trying to make other things this huge hit, and like stuff like Chaotic, and when that doesn't work out, they can't afford these licenses anymore?
Yeah, sort of. And like the things that, for example, Nintendo, it's like it's already there, it's already doing okay. So we didn't put as much effort into it. And then like, we're not going to have Nintendo anymore because we're going to do Xbox. And
that was a choice. They were like,
yeah, I didn't know that was a choice, or if that was that.
I mean, I don't know how much of it was a choice, but I know that they were very excited to, let's do Xbox.
Yeah.
And then like we started with Xbox from the beginning, and they were very excited, and they were like, Nintendo like came and went, it's already going downhill. And I'm like, no, it's never going to go downhill. Like
you said, a lot of ups and downs.
A lot of ups and downs, yeah.
So that's where the Viva Pinata thing came into play.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder too if they were excited about Xbox because they were going to make this brand new show based on this Xbox property.
Oh, I did that. I did the Viva Pinata style guide.
Oh,
that was actually a book. I'm sure I have it. I'm sure I have it here.
You have everything. So cool. Well, thank you for being the archivist. And again, you're just this example. I talk about a lot of leading a creative life that is often very different than what you thought it would be, but very cool. So, yeah. So that's
Viva Pinata was fun. It was difficult because they were piñatas, so it was very difficult to make them look right.
Right. Well, that's a great point, because you had to always remember that they were a piñata, right? Is that?
Yeah. So like you'd see the little pieces of paper, but when when you have a little thing, when you blow it down, it just looked like a blob. So that was kind of difficult.
It's all in the detail when it's a piñata.
Yeah.
Oh God, these are the things I never thought about.
You had to think that things had to look good when they were, a tiny little thing on a notebook or on a pencil, and also on like a giant banner. So it's not always like things don't always work the same.
And I wonder if that's why sometimes they'll just use a logo of something, because the art is lost if something's too small, or if that's again, when you're shopping or looking at stuff, it's a different way to look at things.
That's why we would do all these like icons and like extra art, because sometimes that's all you could use. But sometimes like you'd want to crop a little piece off, and you weren't allowed to. Like no, you can't crop this off. Oh, with Yu-Gi-Oh, I remember that being a big thing. They wanted the whole, character, and sometimes they had like huge wings or whatever, and we're like, we need to crop this off so that we can like fill the space. Nope. You can't crop it off. So we'd have to like reduce everything and then have like all this empty space.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With Pokemon, I remember that like flipping the characters was a big deal. Like if it worked better the other way, like maybe there was an ear
like
up
a mirror
here.
image, you mean? Like
exactly. You weren't allowed to flip the characters at all. Like they noticed immediately, and they're like, nope.
Wow. I mean, and I'm sure they have their reasons, but as an artist, that must be so incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. Like sometimes you were like, this fits the design perfectly. And I'm like, nope.
Well,
yeah,
that's fascinating. I feel like I've learned a lot. So thank you so much. We can't wait to see all the pictures, and we'll put those up on Patreon. And thank you.
Okay, I'll send it to you. No problem. So very nice to meet you guys.
That was so interesting, and I'm so excited to see these style guides and stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait. Our newly crowned archivists of 4Kids days.
Have you ever done work like that? Like style guidey stuff, character design, like...
I've helped people out with animation pitches, for like shows where I don't think nearly I was that... like strict, the way some of those can kind of be, but like I'm like kind of like aware of that, and I've seen a bunch of style guides, especially recording this podcast too, but never quite like that. But I think like there is a bit of like a crossover with animation, because sometimes we have like a lot of guidelines, like do's and don'ts depending on the show. So
Yeah, that whole vector thing, I learned a new word today. That whole vector thing with the scale of, because I kept thinking like, what did they have to work off of? Did they have to like take a screenshot? Like you couldn't just take a screenshot. There was like all this technology must have changed this business so much.
If you're ever at a convention or something, or look at like banners that have like characters on them, and if like it's like really blurry or or
all
crusty
the time
looking. Well, I think also though not everything's a vector, but like if it's like a nice like 2D cell shaded art, like you could tell what's a vector when you could like great example like she brought up, you put it on a plane.
Yeah. So. That's a big vector. I don't know how to use the word vector properly. But yeah, that even I think what happens sometimes too is like you're saying at a convention they'll make a banner and all of a sudden I'll see art and I'm like, oh, that's fan art. They shouldn't have used that. They don't realize that they used fan art on there. They're not trying to rip anyone off, or they're like, no, that was like the highest quality picture we could find. So it accidentally happens that they kind of take that stuff. So usually it's not intentional and it's not, to screw someone over, but it is a bummer because some of that's hard to find. So
no, for sure. Yeah,
back then.
It was good at one point. It's getting worse now, but
yeah.
So
what
was it?
I'm still learning how to distinguish AI art. Speaking of. Because I don't want to post any AI art.
Maybe I can help you out.
Yeah. I accidentally have like retweeted or something because I don't know the things to look for. And do you think you're just super fast at recognizing it now?
Unfortunately, I got to say it's getting a little bit harder, but there's some stuff it's just so obvious to me.
Like extra fingers.
Not only, it's just when things are very glossy. When something is so detailed but it's so glossy and there's so many like highlights and shadows, and when you realize like I don't know where the light source is coming from, that's a dead giveaway.
Oh, interesting. Okay. You're teaching us what to look for.
At least when it comes to illustrations. It's in terms of animation, it's just whether or not something just feels natural or not. And usually a lot of stuff like, oh, isn't this great animation? It's like, well, it only lasts 3 seconds because, if it tried to go any further, it would implode. So, but how about that, what was the storage unit? Was it again?
Iron Mountain. Gosh. There's going to be some sad people when they hear about that.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't find the rest of Ultraman.
Yeah, listen, there might have been someone who took that stuff.
Maybe, yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Konami has it. Maybe, end, yeah.
But
no, but at least I don't have to plan my heist.
Yeah, we don't got to make the trip.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was probably so much like merch, probably I bet a lot of like these displays from these trade shows and all that were in there.
Oh yeah.
Who knows? Who knows if archival footage was in there? That's not necessarily the best place to keep them. But then again, I don't know how much.
Right. It might not have been there.
Yeah. I don't know how much 4Kids was putting time into making sure tapes were stored in somewhere that didn't make them deteriorate. So
yeah, listen, I'd love to talk to someone. Like I tried to add a bunch of people online from Discotech because I'm curious when they reach out to certain companies to like when the Fighting Foodons DVD got put out,
right?
Like who had that? Like how do they know who to go to? I'm sort of curious the process of reissuing some of this stuff and stuff that's on their wish list. I'm curious about. It sounds like Ultraman is, we got reached out to by some company when we just had those very few episodes that hadn't aired. So I guess that's on I wonder if that's on Discotech's wish list. I'm so curious about that. So if someone works for Discotech or a company like that and they would like to talk to us, please hit us up. If you guys like the show, you can please just give it 5 stars, hit the like button, subscribe, tell a friend, tell 10 friends. Now tell your sister.
They got
I don't know.
They got more people to talk about the show with.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can be like, oh, so dumb when Tara said blah. I don't care if you're talking about me like that. That's fine. I say dumb stuff. You can discuss it. Steve never says anything dumb, so don't ever say that about him.
I refuse to be embarrassed, so I just keep my mouth shut.
No. Yeah, so we have a Patreon page, all that good stuff, and we will
catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4Kids Flashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. For podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to Maji, MAJI.media. Thanks for listening.
Hi, it's Ashley and Jess with Wellness Reality Check. We are 2 health practitioners, moms, and best friends trying to navigate the world of holistic health in a balanced, productive way that brings health to our lives instead of dogmatic extremes. We'll be breaking down health trends, interviewing your favorite health influencers, and always keeping it real. We hope this podcast brings listeners back down to earth, providing a dose of reality in the often idealized world of health and wellness.
Wellness Reality Check. Follow the show now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at wellnessrealitycheck.com.